Yep. All right, I'm going to call us all back to order. As you are willing and able, please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all for coming. We've had no one request an opportunity to deliver public comment, so we'll move right into the report of the secretary. May I have a motion, please, to approve the minutes of our last regular meeting?
I move we approve the minutes of the regular meeting of Wednesday, June 21st, 2023. Second, Jen?
Jen, thank you very much. Another sterling job on the minutes. Any comments from the board or questions about them? This would be with regard to the regular meeting, right? Yes, on the 21st. Went through them this morning, and I had no notes.
I was gonna say, I just did a quick review online, and they looked good.
Yep. Okay, if there are no comments or questions, then I will ask for an all in favor, please. That is 6-0, thank you. And may I have a motion, please, with regard to the minutes of our special meeting of Wednesday, June 28th?
Move to approve the minutes of the special agenda meeting on Wednesday, June 28th, 2023.
I'll second.
Thank you, Kate. Similar comment, much less content, but really well done. So any comments or questions? We'll move right to a vote. All in favor? That is 6-0. Thank you, and we're good with that. That brings us to the report of the chair. Somewhere in our packet, I believe we have a list of school board meeting dates for the coming school year. You all know already that we've only got the one meeting in August, which is late in the month. We'll stick to our first and third Wednesday rubric generally, but there's a couple places in the spring where we have vacation conflicts, I suspect. Is it in here, in fact?
It's stapled, I guess.
Back page of the,
Yeah.
agenda.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
actually stapled to the agenda, even better.
Nice.
There we go. Please.
So then as always, there's always kind of a curveball or two around February vacation and
Yep.
April vacation.
Yes.
And so February, we moved back a week, so we would do a meeting first, 7th of February, then we would do one when we returned after that break, which is on the 28th of February.
Right.
And then this is the one that I'm not sure, I'll share with you my logic anyway. April 3rd, we would have the first meeting, and then we would do an April 10th meeting. That would give us the ability that if you wanted to do another meeting after we return from April vacation, we would have time to do that prior to the first meeting in May, which is when the budget is presented.
Right.
And so that would give us some flexibility, that it would give the board some time
To
to do
schedule an additional workshop.
if we needed it.
Yep,
Yep.
yep, yes.
That's why I
Yep.
tried to align it that way.
That makes
Yeah.
sense.
Great.
The only curveball with that may be, I'm not sure where we would be with negotiations, because we're negotiating a number of contracts at that
Right,
time.
right.
And also not sure as far as health insurance numbers and those types of things, if we'll have that information back at that time, but we may need to schedule an additional meeting, we may not, but just to
Yep,
kind of let you
makes
know
sense.
the thought process.
In that space between April 10th and May 1st.
That's correct. Yeah,
Okay.
I think it's like the 24th or 25th of April, maybe?
24th
24th would be the.
would be 14 days later, yeah.
And we could certainly change the meeting down the road if the board so wishes, at that point in time, we could communicate that to the community. Excuse
Yep.
me.
But it might be good to just put that down as a tentative.
That'd
like,
be good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
Great,
Good.
okay. So mark your calendars.
Yep.
Great, thank you. Secondly, in our last meeting, at the end of June, we talked about assignments to the standing committees. I think at least one of you weren't, two of you
I was not
weren't
here.
here for the discussion.
I put in my two
And we,
cents.
sort of post the exercise, we stumbled on the idea that the negotiations committee is going to have a very, very busy spring.
Right.
And in particular, Kate, you've got some course or program conflicts that
It's going to be a busy spring for sure.
yeah, okay. So we had a discussion around moving some folks around, doing some reshuffling. What came out of that discussion was moving Kate off of negotiations and onto facilities and finance, taking Rebecca off of facilities and finance and moving her to social wellness and SEL, and then taking Jen off of Jen off of SEL and putting her onto negotiations. I think I did that right.
Yes.
Yes.
The three people involved all agree with that,
Did
right?
you all have a conversation about it?
Yes,
or-
yes,
okay.
yeah. Yeah, we were looking
Yeah,
for
make
a
sure,
one-for-one
yeah.
swap, but then
Okay.
it turned out we needed to do a three-team swap in order
Yeah.
to get the salary cap stuff right. Okay,
Does that, Lisa, does that sound okay for you?
Yeah, no, that is absolutely perfect. I was
So,
gonna
Ju-
volunteer myself for negotiations too, just because I've never done it.
yeah.
Oh.
I've
and you
never
were-
been
yeah.
on the
Well-
negotiations committee, which is kind of interesting, considering I've been here a while.
Yeah.
So if we needed that, I'm happy to do that,
Could-
and then maybe, no, but you don't need anybody else.
Right. We
Right,
have- we have
okay,
three.
then
I
we're
would
good.
want
I would
to.
like to be on
Okay.
That's
Yeah.
perfect, so we're good.
Okay, so just to state it now, because we're going to vote on it later, I'll just read where we landed with the committee. So F and F would then be Heather, Kate, and me. Policy would be Rebecca, Lisa, and Jen. Negotiations would be Heather, Jen, and me. And Wellness SEL would be Rebecca, Lisa, and Jen. And I think that gives each of us,
Wait a minute.
Wait, no.
No.
Kate.
Kate instead of Jen
Oh.
on wellness.
Yeah.
Rebecca, Lisa, and Kate.
John, are you on
Rebecca, Lisa,
negotiations?
and Kate, sorry. Thank you. I forgot to make that change. So Kate, good?
Mm-hmm.
All right, Wellness, SEL, Rebecca, Lisa, and Kate. And then the others as I read them. Everybody's comfortable with that? When we get to new business, we'll vote on changes as discussed.
Okay.
Okay, great. Sorry I messed that up. Okay, that concludes the report of the chair.
I had a letter. You want to share?
That's correspondence.
Okay.
That's further down.
All right.
Oh, believe me, I will share
All
it.
right.
Okay, report of the superintendent, please.
Thank you very much. We have been in the midst of a conversation for a few months now about looking into the feasibility of doing an artificial turf field at Marshwood High School. Something that we talked quite a bit about. We asked Mr. Russell to kind of form an exploratory committee to kind of start gathering a little bit of data, getting some feedback around this. I think that there's pluses and minuses to everything, and I think when Rich and I spoke, I think that kind of came through with the work that we did. I think, as I said before, this is the first steps in exploring an opportunity. This is, there's no vote tonight to say we're gonna do it or not do it. That's not on the agenda item. And I think there's some other data that we would need to gather.
Sure.
But I think this is a great check-in, so that Rich can kind of share kind of the work that's gone on so far with that committee, and then we can talk a little bit about next steps and any recommendations to that as well. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yeah.
All right, Mr. Boswell, thank you very much. Bernie Marvin is with him. Bernie's one of our coaches here at the high school.
All the committee members were invited, and I know it's busy, but welcome to Turf 101. So, as John was saying, this is purely, let me stand behind the mic.
For the benefit of the
Yes.
stream, yes, thank you.
So, this is purely informational, and we learned a lot going through this, and it was a really good process. And I put together a PowerPoint just so people could follow along, and hopefully it helps you just see some things up there. But let me make sure my thing is on here. Sorry, this is, slide person. So, that would work, but, so this is the closest I'm gonna get to Shakespeare. To turf or not to turf, that's our question. Here's the purpose of the presentation. Like I said, it's to provide comparisons to keeping natural grass, which we have, with cost factors for installing artificial turf and its cost factors. So, ad hoc committee, this gives you a little timeline. We met in November, this past November of 2022, to inquire about possibility of turf and putting it on the MHS Stadium field. Members that were there and present with us are people that were going to be utilizing that area. and you'll see the makeup of the committee in a minute, but it would be field hockey, soccer, football, lacrosse, track. We invited band as well. And also invited a grass and an artificial turf expert. The guy's name was Mark Curran. And the best part about having Mark there for us was Mark was retiring, and he had no skin in the game whatsoever. So he was just giving us some basics on really what was behind installing or keeping a grass field. So members of the committee, myself, Todd Hughes, Heidi, Kristen Amato at the time, our field hockey coach, Ben DeShane, Meg Martinson, Brian Lindgren, soccer, Bernie Marvin, Matt Moreland, lacrosse, Alex and Sean, football, Matt Sanzone, cross-country track, and Mark Curran was the turf specialist that was there. So here's just a little brief history. You know, prior to 1960, grass was really the only thing that people used, and it started to become when the Houston Astrodome was introduced, and those of you that are familiar with that, it was really starting to be popular with baseball stadiums, but it was like playing on concrete. Turf's evolved like everything over the years, so it's gone through generations. So this is a first generation, and I just put up there, think of carpet on concrete. Second generation turf, where it started to become a little bit more spongy and a little bit more fill that went into it. And now we're at the third generations of turfs. That's what's being installed all over the country now and all over the world. And it really mimics grass to the closest extent. Here are the trends that are out there. Like it or not, colleges and high schools are starting to move more towards turf. In our current league that we compete at, the SMAA, there are 17 schools. In 2001, there were 3 that utilized artificial turf. Now there are 9, and there are others moving towards it as well. That doesn't take into consideration some of the other Western Maine Conference schools, but there are several that have them as well, too. Just some things. I found a BYU study from 2002, and I just thought it was significant to put on there that, you know, with synthetic turf, there's increases in temperatures. Not that we're in the hotbed, but it does get hot in August. And you can see that when you get 90 plus in temperature with humidity, and it does get humid around here, surface temperature can reach 156 degrees. So that's a concern. Not that we would be utilizing it midday, but that's a concern that's out there. Concussions, they say, tend to be on the uprise with some surfaces that are out there, artificial turf. And again, this was back in 2002. Turf burn was another one, which led to some other infections. But natural grass, you deal with inconsistent ground leveling and drainage, slippery, losing games, things like that. Just the steps that are involved in installation of a synthetic surface. You know, there's site prep, there's drainage, concrete's poured for the outside rim base. A base is formed, turf is laid down, and infill added, and I'm going to show you what the timeline basically looks like if you stay on schedule and stay ahead of weather. So here are some timetables from when you first dig ground. Field excavation's about 10 days. Outer concrete curbing, 6 to 10. Drainage system, 6 to 10. A concrete base foundation is 8 to 10. The big majority of it is when the turf is actually laid out. That's the most important part, 27 to 30 days. Sewing of the seams, field lining and putting any decorative marks on there, 8 days. Infill added takes about 5, and then when you get to the very end, the cleanup is, 3 to 5 days. But you're looking anywhere between 81 to 98 days, which is about 3 months, and that's what I got from calling around and doing surveys with 22 schools in Maine that have either gone through a turf project in the last 3 years, but there are plenty out there. So we would lose up to 3 months, give or take a few days, if we decided to do something like this. So costs associated with turf projects, just important to note. Initial costs of installation vary depending on what you use for padding and infill. So when Mark came and talked to us, he talked about padding that goes down that can really help in preventing injuries, and the infill. And infill is something that people have talked about, and you've probably seen it in in articles that people that are installing turf fields with some carcinogens that may be in the crumb rubber that go in, or there are some schools that have used cut up sneaker treads that are not carcinogenic. It's just depending on what anybody decides to do, that is out there. But he told us to approximate 1.2 to 1.5, and he specifically said about 1.4 is probably your price range that you'd be dealing with if you were doing just the turf on a first-time project. And we did measurements out on the field, and we had civil consultants come down and do a walkthrough with us, because we were trying to talk about, would any runoff from our field interfere with the well system that we have here, and would it get in there? And it would not, which was good. But he came down in January, which was great, gratis, and just did us a favor and told us what they would do on their end if they were the people that were involved with it. And doing a survey within Maine, again, I got 22 schools to respond to me in Maine. Most schools wrapped in other capital improvement needs, new ADA accessible bleachers, resurfacing tracks, redoing a complete track, LED light upgrades. Projects range from 1.2 million on the lower end, which was Morse, and up to 5.3 million at Kennebunk, which just got done their turf project. But they wrapped everything in. So they had a town bond, they did track, lights, press box, bleachers, everything. And looking at some of the options that people had out there, funding was either town bond, private, school budget, or a combination of all three when I polled the districts, and most of them were a combination. There were very few that it was one over the others, or just two, but most of them were three. So these are not Marshwood numbers, but these are numbers that I gathered from other schools, and we did some comparisons to figure out, and it's pretty close of what most of the schools would be doing as well as us. So you'll look, if you're comparing costs to grass and artificial turf annually, mowing equipment, 12 grand, labor cost per hour is about 6,000, fertilization, spending about 5 grand, overseeding about 1,500, core aeration, 2,800, top dressing, 10,000, irrigation, 1,000, equipment depreciation, 3,500, and that rounds out to about $42,000 a year. And then restriping lines, and what we would be doing. And again, those are not Marshwood numbers, but those were numbers that are out there that kind of give you a real good ballpark on what you'd be paying. If it was just an artificial turf, you're looking at about $1,000 of labor hours. And people ask, what do they do with an artificial turf? You don't have to do anything to it, but you do. You have to sanitize it. You have to grade rake it still. There are certain things that have to be done daily. They have a magnetic sweeper as well that picks things up off the turf. But you're looking at the cost of maintaining a grass field is about $50,000 a year with labor included, and artificial turf is about $5,000. So it is about a $40,000 to $45,000 difference in price going from one over the other.
Do you have Marshwood numbers of
I
cost?
do not have Marshwood numbers. We could get those, but we'd have to dig.
Yeah.
But that can be done.
Okay.
Yep.
Because like to replace the turf fields, and how long does it last? Are you getting to that?
Yeah, I'm getting to that.
Okay.
That would be
It's
on
like-
there too.
a
Natural
cost.
grass, this is something that we already have this, but this is when I was looking online, when you're actually starting a project and you're determining whether you're gonna use grass or you're gonna go artificial turf. Mowers are pretty expensive, as you can see. That's probably an average cost of a mower and we have more than one, $30,000. And the stripers are anywhere between $2,500 to $4,000. In synthetic turf, the things that you do need is a sweeper magnet machine, which is about $7,500, a pull behind drag, which is $9,000, a decompaction rake, $2,000, and a sprayer that's a sanitizer. That's going to run an extra $500. So those are initial investments that you would have to make if you were to put in an artificial turf. And Heather, getting to your question, things to consider when switching from grass to turf. Lifespan, it's about 8 to 12. Mark told us 7 to 10. They don't really go from a warranty standpoint beyond 10 years, but He told us to think 7 to 10, and more people that I had talked to, they were saying 8 to 12 is depending on how much usage your turf is gonna get. Hourly, these are another thing too, when you put in a turf, the demand is gonna increase for people wanting to be on there. So you have to take that into consideration as well, because I'm sure people would want to be on our turf. The temperature increases, obviously, is something we would have to deal with. If you rent out, you'll need additional person power, and scheduling needs will increase. But revenue can happen here. So we could gain revenue from doing that. In talking with some other ADs that are in that situation, I asked them how they dealt with that. Some are community services that control the scheduling of the field beyond schools getting the first rights to the field. And then after that, a schedule is handed over saying, here's all the opening spots. Community services would, if, for example, in Scarborough, community services rent out their fields and actually make money on their fields. So the disposal and replacement cost at the end of the turf life is approximately $374,000 to $449,000, depending on what type of turf you get, what you replace it with. So you're looking at, just think of it this way. You're looking at, if you get 10 years out of a turf, you're probably, we would need to save $37,000 to $45,000 a year set aside to actually, so it's not one lump sum at the end of the 10 years, because who's saving $500,000 or $400,000 at the end? But from the money that is potentially saved
from maintenance of the
by
fields.
not using all the stuff that you would have to use on a grass field, there is savings there. It's, so you have to think of it that way, I guess.
So keep in
So,
mind,
next slide, Bernie, I think,
The,
if we have another one.
1.5 million, let's just say, to do the field.
Right.
Do a 10-year bond to be able to pay for that.
Pay
You're
in
talking
10 years.
$150,000 a year in addition to the $5,000 for the thing, so you're 155 in the negative, and then you compensate with that by the, say approximately 50 with the savings, and so that you're still upside down.
Seems like you have to eat the cost of the original
For that 10-year
turf,
period,
and then it's kind of a wash
after
moving
that
forward.
10-year period, you're gonna spend another, by today's numbers, which is $400,000 approximately, which let's just say hypothetically 5 years from now, or 10 years from now, is $500,000. So that's another $50,000 a year if you were to bond that money. So there is, and once you go down this road, there's a cost to bring, if you don't want it anymore, there's a cost to bring back the other field. So I'm just trying to give you like an idea of like short-term, long-term, what it looks like.
Yeah, and can you give us the price of a non-toxic material? I know you mentioned the rubber and sneakers that do give leakage, and I know you mentioned that it probably wouldn't leak into our water supply source, but I mean, including the environment in general is not a great idea. So what would be the cost to go green?
That's a great, I don't have the answer to that. But when Mark came and talked to us, there were like 3, 4, 5 different things you could use for an infill that were, crumb rubber is what everybody used to start out with, and then the studies started coming out about that being carcinogenic and getting into, into water supplies and things like that. But I can probably find that.
Yeah, I would like to, before we discuss it further, I would like to know.
Coconut fibers was the answer for a little while. And
Yeah.
She was saying the
Still.
coconut fibers now isn't necessarily the best answer because that would float when it gets wet, right? So there's some other options.
Correct.
So, but there is an upgrade charge the more.
Green you get.
Yeah.
Sure.
And the more
It's like anything.
and the more padding that you put down too, so that it obviously would make the field safer.
Rich, question about the districts that are making their fields available to the general public. I assume that's in some way tied to the use of municipal bonds to fund the fields, or not necessarily?
That's a great question. I
Not
don't know.
clear.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would
I
want to
mean,
know that.
You can't generate revenue if it's gonna be a tax exempt bond.
Fair enough, right? Yeah. If we're interested in generating revenue with these fields, we have to rent them out to people who will pay for us.
We can still get
I-
a bond, it just wouldn't necessarily be tax exempt.
Yeah.
My last slide was just our group and the people that would be utilizing it. We asked them to try to put together a list of like pros and cons of switching to an artificial turf. And you know, the pros are less maintenance from what people were saying, fewer game cancellations, increased time to play, and greater flexibility to schedule practices, games, so forth. Safer when weather conditions come into play. Spring sports would get on the field sooner. Allows sports that are played on turf at away fields to be on more equal playing ground. Like right now, when we get ready for, like when Bernie's getting ready for a playoff game and we're going to be on turf, BA has been super helpful for us in letting us use their turf so our kids can kind of get that turf feel, because it's different. You know, the balls, even lacrosse, they bounce different. Soccer's the same way. They bounce different, you know. So it's good for our kids to be able to have that, which is awesome. No dirt and mud-filled spots in the season as it wears on, you know, in the goal mouth areas and the face-off areas. As the season wears on, that becomes a troublesome area for us. And water conservation. We obviously don't have to water our field as much and turn that on, but we have wells. So it's not a cost there, but it is water conservation. Some of the cons that some of the coaches and people that are in our boosters that were involved was potentially more injuries that some of the studies are showing, cost upon the need of replacement. You have to plan for that. No need for a turf scheduler if we decide to rent out. Disruption of games and practices while being installed. We would essentially lose a season. You know, we'd have to choose, do we lose the fall or spring? And we're not in that climate where we can take the winter and do it.
When you say lose a season, you just mean we would only play away games mostly?
No, I would say that we would probably be on our secondary field, playing more, and we'd be at the mercy of daylight.
Couldn't it be put in over the summer, though, June, July, August, if it's 90 days?
You know, all the schools, that was a good question, and I've asked that. It's getting on the timeline of the people that are installing, and usually they are starting their site work in March or so, and they get done. I mean, Kenny Bunk was in a situation this year that they didn't get released. They were allowed to play on it for a bit, and then they got taken off from it and couldn't play on it in their own playoff games at the end of May because they weren't released to be on the field. But you're still looking at 3 months, so you're going to intersect. I mean, the perfect scenario is to start in mid-June and end mid-September, but to get on a contractor's schedule like that, it's probably pretty tough.
So it would have, even if it was in the summer, it would affect the preseason opportunities for all the sports as well.
Correct.
So, and then also I was just thinking, like with UNH, they water their turf fields.
They do.
And I believe we would need to, you know, to cool
Still
it down.
do that.
Yeah.
That's a slightly different product, though. I think the AstroTurf that they keep water on for field hockey is different than.
Well, to cool them. Yeah, to cool them, no?
I think that they still water their main stadium field over there at UNH. Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
Well, it keeps the particles from flying up.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
And then initial cost to the taxpayers is a concern, you know, depending on how we wanted to fund it if we were to go that route, and potential toxicology issues with using crumb rubber as an infill. So,
Yeah, and I'm wondering if, like, because like the study you shared was over 20 years old. Were
Yeah.
there any more recent studies? Because I feel like I read it in something about knee injuries in particular that's coming out now with athletes, especially the high school athletes.
yeah,
And just,
Female athletes as
Yes.
well, I think.
Yeah.
As well, so.
yeah.
and I'm sure there are. I looked, you know, I couldn't find I couldn't find any really good studies, and I don't know if they're just not out there or my searches were not that great, but that's just, you know, that's what our committee came up with, and obviously we're in the infancy stages of this right now, and it's more informational and decide, you know, what do we want to do.
And first of all, thanks for putting all this time into this.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
Sure.
extensive time effort.
This
Sure.
is not an easy conversation.
No.
You know, there is a cost in a lot of ways, no matter what you do, whether it's, you know, losing the fields for a season, whether it's the financial, you know, impact. There's a lot of things to consider, and I just think we have to think about those things. The other part that's in my brain, and what I think is the next logical step, is that we are gonna ask main track and tennis to come down and give us an assessment on our track. That track is now 25 years old. We resurfaced it twice already.
Yep.
So we are hoping that maybe we can resurface it again, which is a much different thing than having to, you know, put up a new that's, we are at the end of the lifespan for that track. And so I
That's a
think
cost.
we want to look into see where we are with that, because that impacts things. I think the other part of it is that we do have some issues with our bleachers on the visiting side, being ADA compliant. We want to make sure that they're up to code with those types of things. So there's some other things that we want to look at, kind of as we look at the whole package. So I think we would get a better sense of a timeline. I think, Rich, you were saying that when you and I spoke about a year and a half out, though, to start getting on people's books. I mean, it's not like you call someone, they're going to be here in a few months. This is a long process. I think if the board feels like this is something we want to look at, I think we also want to create an opportunity for public to come and give some comment on that, and be able to kind of do a public hearing about it, just to be able to allow people to have some opinion if we get to that point in time where we think it's important. And obviously that would be something that would be placed in the ballots down the road. So this is just the preliminary. There's a lot of things to think about. Even if someone were to come and say, here is $1.5 million, let's do the project tomorrow, you just go fiscally remember that there is a cost. It may be neutral, maybe cost neutral at that point, but I just think it's important to talk about all these variables as we kind of go into the project, or discuss the project, I should say.
Rich, do kids need special shoes, or
They just can't wear metal cleats.
but then if they go somewhere else where there's grass, just from like an equity standpoint, then do they need metal cleats? Like, would that mean athletes would need?
No,
Shoe-
because
shoes.
no one wears metal on the grass, like for
No
football
sport would
or
be
field
affected.
hockey
Okay.
or,
Okay.
it's all, they would not have to change.
Okay.
There are certain turfs out there, though, where they do not allow cleats on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is not the turf that high schools are putting in right
Okay.
now.
And is it that stuff like when your kid comes home after playing in a field like this and it's all over your floor?
Yes.
Okay.
That's the crumb rubber,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Or the infield, yeah. that
But
people
like,
use.
so that would be in locker rooms, that would be, yeah.
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 Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know how to quantify this. There's an additional, I guess I would call it a pro, and that is the cachet associated with this kind of, you walk onto a turf field in a turf stadium, and it's like, wow, this is amazing. It always looks amazing.
Yeah.
It looks like way more professional, all of those things. And I don't know how to quantify that, but
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a real thing.
yeah,
It is.
yep,
Kids love playing on it
Yeah.
too.
I think Bernie shared this with me, and I want to make sure I get this right, but when the high school was originally being built, that was part of the original plans, and just as things kind of happened,
Yeah.
it got cut, and they said they were
Yeah.
gonna address it later, and so like, this isn't the first time this conversation
No.
happened. When 1999, that was when it was being discussed here, so that
Yeah.
that was kind of the history that Bernie shared with me as well, so.
yeah.
Any other thoughts?
I think we should keep going with the effort to get more information. I certainly want to hear more about what we think the injury profile looks like. I'm sure it's changed as we've gone from Generation 1 to Generation 3 on the materials.
Yeah,
Toxicology on Gen 3 ought to be better than it was on Gen 1. If it isn't, we're doing something wrong.
yeah.
And was that study that you shared on the Gen 3
No,
turf?
No,
Oh,
yeah,
see,
Could have been on the.
so
Gen
that-
2.
Maybe 2? Yeah, it was 2001, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
BYU study?
2002,
better now
yeah.
In terms of the injuries and
Yeah.
all the risks
Yeah.
with that.
Yeah.
I had one more question, of course it's gone now, hold on.
And the environmental product quotes, I think we really need to know that
Yeah.
before we even move,
Yeah.
talk.
I think it'd be
What
nice.
sanitizes, like, what's the product that's?
That's a
What
good
is the
question,
cost for
too.
that?
Well, what's in it?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't know what's in the sanitizer. I mean, I would assume it's pretty, it's non-toxic. I mean, I would think. I'm sure it's like a combination of vinegar and something that goes over the field, but they do it daily.
Okay.
It's a quick thing, from what I understand. It takes about a half hour to 45 minutes to sanitize a field. But
So that's
I don't know
labor hours too,
what's in the
though.
product, but that's how I can find that
Yeah.
out.
Cost.
I think
Yeah, there's more cost than
in my
just.
brain,
Yes, there's.
I think
Yeah.
the first step is gathering more information. Let's find out, some of those variables, what is a track, if we can kind of find out about the different
Yep.
levels of fill, I think is the term you use. Then I think the next thing would be is a feasibility study, and that's something that would be taken on by an architect. And it's about a $10,000 cost-ish to do that. If we get the fact gathering and the board still feels like this is something that they want to investigate, that would be the next step before I think we would make the final decision. That would be kind of a sequential approach, that would probably make the most sense.
Yeah. I think just having a more comprehensive though cost with the disinfectant, the tools that are required to do that disinfectant, all those pieces, yeah, would have to be.
What our current costs are.
What our
Yeah.
current costs are too.
Yeah, what our
One more
current.
question too.
Yeah.
The number, you said, was it 9 out of 17 of the
It's up to
schools?
nine.
Of the SMAA schools.
And so, I know you talk to all those guys all the time, or girls, sorry.
Yeah.
But what are, how many other schools do you think are like where we are right now? Like, oh, Kim, should we do this? Like, what, do you have a sense of that?
I think there's a great many schools that are talking about it right
Right.
now.
Like the same stage of
And there's a
it.
lot in the, like Bernie and I were talking before the meeting, in the Western Maine Conference, which is, mainly the Class B, C, and D schools. There are plenty that are playing on turf as well in their league. And I think it comes with pluses and minuses. You have to decide if it's going to be the right fit for our school and our district and the right thing for our kids. What I'm hearing, I have friends that are at the, professional level of sports, and I also have friends that work on fields with the professional levels of sports, and there are quite a few, professional football teams that are talking about going away from turf and going back to grass, and the Players Association is making that move. Cost is probably not as big of an issue for the professional ranks, for their cost savings that they may see in doing artificial turf and not having to maintain it, but their players are concerned about being on artificial turf.
And I don't mean to be negative, and that's not my goal, but I just think you gotta also remember that you're talking about,
$1.5 million minimally.
$150,000, of that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying, I'm just trying to, that's
Yeah.
a reality to doing this of the cost benefit analysis. And I think
Yeah.
that's what Rich was talking about, and that's, part of this is a judgment call at some point, and then if we get to the point we want to take it to the community, then the community obviously will give you feedback on that. But
Yeah.
I just think there is that, it's not gonna be a cost savings. And the other thing you gotta be mindful of is that we can get a price today, but 18 months from now,
Right.
you have no idea, where we're gonna be,
Yeah.
things could cost more.
Right.
We just gotta be ready for that inflationary issue. Last summer, I just want to remind you, we had a lighting project, and we felt really, really good about that until all of a sudden, for 5 weeks, we had shipping containers stuck in New York Harbor, but we couldn't get the lights to finish the project until the end of September. And that's just sometimes the reality when you take on these projects. So you got to kind of prepare for the worst and hope for the best.
Yeah, and we were talking about our values earlier today, and consideration of all children. Not every child in our district plays sports, and we also want to just think about the amount of money and investment that it would take, and is that equality across the board, like with the music department, the art department, and things. It's just I'm not saying anything, but I'm just saying I wanted to consider every single child.
Yeah.
Because we should be giving lots of different opportunities to others, and we just really need to make sure we're investing our money correctly.
So Ryan and I met today about the athletic enterprise account. And so that's the account where we have, an afternoon soccer game, we collect, gate fees. It goes into a kind of a pool of money that we kind of keep for kind of those health, wellness, athletic improvements. We have the same thing for the fine arts. But we take in about $15,000 to $20,000 roughly a year out of all of our events from those tickets. So just to kind of give you an idea, because I think some people will be like, well, no, we'll be able to charge at the gate, and we'll pay for itself. It's just, it's not, that math doesn't work out that way. Again, but I think those are all the variables that we want to talk about as we start to do this analysis. So.
Yep.
Awesome.
What were the sense of the boosters? I'm just curious, I know we need to move on with the meeting. I'm just curious, was there any sort of strong, or was it a mix?
Well, I'll say this, and I don't want to, Heidi was there too, and she could speak to it, and the coaches, yeah. I would say, for the most part, if I had to from the surveys and what people had to input, I would say they were for it. One of the things that we talked about too was, field hockey has their own field right now. They don't play on the stadium field, and that's been a choice, like we used to a long time ago. But it's got such a crown to it, and it's very uneven. Nobody plays on the field hockey field, and it's pretty smooth, and it's good for them. It's especially good for the game of field hockey. For them to be able to play and have access to lights, just like our soccer teams do in lacrosse and football. So that, I would say the field hockey movement was they would like to have a turf. And game is definitely different on turf or field hockey. There's no question about it.
That's what I was gonna say.
100%.
From the field hockey boosters' perspective, watching the kids go to turf fields and play, it's a much faster game on turf.
Yep.
So for that sport specifically, it's very impactful to have turf versus grass.
Yes.
Because our real, I would say when teams who play on turf fields come to us, they're at a slight disadvantage because they're
disadvantage,
not
right?
used to playing on grass, but it's easier to play slower than it is to play faster, right?
That's a good point.
I'd also say that one of the considerations that came up, I don't think, we're at the mercy of weather, right? We don't lose a ton of events in the fall. We may have a rain out here or there, and we play through rain, and the field's not terrible. It's not the best field in the world, but it's not terrible. I do feel for our spring sports teams because our spring sports have a really hard time getting out on that stadium field and on the secondary field to start practicing because our fields are really, really far behind once the frost goes and it's soft, and if we get out there too quick, we would lose the field for the year. So, we're probably behind in the spring for the most part. I'd say the fall we're in decent shape, minus field hockey not having, access to that field or choosing.
Or BA is using their field, so it's not like we have free reign to them
Yeah.
anytime we want.
Right.
Not to mention getting kids there and
Right.
all of that. Yeah.
And lacrosse boosters did some purchasing of some dome time
Yep.
this spring
Yep.
to support.
To get out so we could get
sports.
practice time
Yeah, I
in.
think field hockey did that back in the day too.
Yeah.
We play on turf now.
One of the other things that got brought up too was the length of the actual turf. So like different sports would have a different preferred length, so field hockey would have a much shorter turf, longer for like football or lacrosse. So when you're putting in a turf field that's gonna get multi-use, it's not gonna be ideal for field hockey or ideal for, it's gonna be kind of a hybrid field, so it isn't necessarily gonna be the best it could be for all the sports. It's gonna kind of be a mix. So-
Because if you notice, anybody who's been to a UNH field hockey game, UNH plays on really that AstroTurf type of a surface, which is really good for the sport. I'm not sure about from an injury standpoint how good it is, but it's really super good for ball control.
Thank you, Rich.
Get
Yes,
that
thank you.
PowerPoint.
Thank you so much.
Thank
You're welcome.
Can you share this with Rebecca? Rebecca, we want to put this up on the website when we can have all of our PowerPoints on the websites, and then if you can share with the board members as well, just so they can kind of go through.
And I'll work on getting some of that other information that we talked about too.
Great.
Awesome.
as we move
Thank you,
forward.
Rich.
We should keep going though. We should press forward, yeah.
Yeah, we'll keep gathering information and we'll get the facts as best we
Yeah,
can.
cooled off a little bit.
I took a field trip on Monday to Woolwich, Maine. And so I went to the Competitive Energy Green Mile Solar Project. And so I have some pictures for you. It was like an act of Congress to be able to take the pictures. They had to meet the foreman.
Oh
and
my
they wanted to put a
God.
hard hat on me. I said, I just want to take 3 pictures. That's all I really want to do.
That's funny.
It's really big. It's a really, really big solar farm. This, remember, is the consortium that we joined where involving the credits, and this is kind of one of the ways that we're doing to be able to access solar power rather than doing the solar panels. And so there should be a cost savings for us. It looks to me like it's done, and just because the panels are up, it's not operational at this point in time. Speaking earlier this week, Ryan mentioned that middle of August, they plan to be done, and they hope to have all the permits in the line by October, so we hope by November 1st, it'll be up and operational, and we can start recuperating those benefits once the solar farm is up and in place. So it was neat. I mean, it's huge. I think eventually it would be a great opportunity to take kids there someday to kind of say, this is what it looks like, this is how kind
How
of
it works.
the cycle works. And I will tell you, it was huge. I was surprised how it was. Any questions about that at all? remember that, there is some cost savings that we hope to be able to recuperate from those credits. But we just don't really know what they're gonna be. Obviously, there's a couple of variables, is that A, when's the project done? And then B, we really have these projections around the LED projects that we've done, which is gonna reduce the amount of the energy that we're using, and so I'm not sure how that's gonna impact the financial side of that, so just so it's clear. And then the other part, I just wanted to share with you, Heidi, Renee, Michael Byrne met with Bob Ryan. Bob Ryan is a representative from Project Adventure out of Beverly, Massachusetts, regarding the building of a Project Adventure course at Marshall High School. So right now, we have a pretty extensive Project Adventure course at Marshall Middle School, where it's done indoors. We're looking at the possibility of doing an outdoor course, and so comprised of 6 to 8 high elements and 6 to 8 low elements, and so that would be a place where physical education classes could go, classes could go for team building, particularly like the freshman skills academy. That might be really important to incorporate that as you're kind of getting the transition to new student orientation. That could be part of new student orientation. Professional development is all part of that, and so we're looking at ways to fund that. And so one of the things that we would consider is the athletic enterprise account, which is kind of the gate receipts, with something that would benefit all students, and that's kind of what we've done with that account in the past. And so kind of stay tuned, we're excited about it. If you would like to, the next time we meet, I can take you on a short little field trip and show you where it is. It's kind of carved out in these little neat spot of the woods. You do want it in the woods, you don't want it, around so people can access it. And so, and just for safety reasons, they do take down, for instance, you need a ladder to get to the high elements to be able to get to those things.
Sure.
It would require some professional development for our health and physical education staff here at the high school and some other staff. It might also be appropriate for our social workers to be able to work with students in groups as well. So I think it's a great opportunity. The Great Work School is also looking at 1 or 2 elements as kind of part of the REV grant that they received, and so they're working with Bob Ryan as well to kind of put together a quote to be able to help them with that. So.
Great.
Any questions about that at all?
It's being used for your adult team building as well.
100%, 100%, yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, someday it would be wonderful if we had a full zip line. He came on site and kind of said, look, there's a spot, that runs along the back of the practice fields where you could build an incredible zip line there. For that, it's probably phase 2. We're not waiting for that. Just doing a couple things, using our trees, that's the other part.
Yeah.
The natural trees that we have.
Fun,
We
yay.
use
I
those
want a
as
zip line.
motivations. So,
Yeah.
I mean, that's fun.
That's a memorable
Yeah.
experience.
Yes.
The beauty of that is it also would all be all ADA compliant.
Yeah.
And so students would be able to access that. And
Yeah.
so, for instance, a nitro swing, where kind of goal is to get, the entire team from one side to the other side, and you would, how do you, manipulate the nitro swing to be able to do that without falling in a lot or nitro,
Yes.
or whatever it is. So, but it really talks about, really a differentiated approach, and really kind of learning for all. So, we're excited.
Love that.
I see a lot of math and all of that.
The kids,
And then we had a couple of resignations. Tess Barbaro is a first grade teacher at Elliott Elementary School. She had been traveling pretty extensively to come down and work at Elliott. She now has a job as a meeting coach, and that kind of has been her kind of a lifelong dream. So I hate to see Tess go. She's fantastic, but wish her nothing but the best. And then I got a resignation earlier, I think it was today, from Gretchen Nelson, science teacher at Marshwood High School. And so we'll post that position as well. And so, we're hiring-wise, we're in pretty good shape right now. Obviously, these are a little bit different. I do have a candidate for the Elliott Elementary School position on the agenda for this evening.
Great.
That's good. And that concludes my report.
Yep, no students tonight.
No students.
Okay, moving on to correspondence. I did have one item I wanted to report on. I got on copy a letter that was addressed to John from the Executive Director of the Maine School Superintendents Association, Eileen King, and Eric Waddell, who's the president of the MSSA, commending John and expressing their sincere appreciation for his invaluable contribution as a member of their resolutions committee. Dedication, expertise, and commitment to mission were mentioned, so that's all good stuff. So I just wanted to make that public. John's doing
thank
good
you
work
for
on the
your
MSSA
service.
Resolutions Committee.
Thank you.
And that is the extent of correspondence. That brings us to the report of the committees. FNF will meet next month, so we'll talk about that then. Ed policy, we have some first reads up tonight. Yes.
Yes.
Anything else to say about the most recent meeting? Or actually, that was before our last meeting, but we postponed the first reads. Am I remembering that correctly? When did the ed policy?
We had we had to have one more meeting.
Okay, okay.
We didn't meet enough, so we wanted to meet a little bit more. How's
Okay.
that? And so,
Yeah, an
we had a
extension.
presentation by Securely, which is kind of a data system that kind of monitors student emails, and so we had about a 45-minute presentation with that, and then we have 3 or 4 policies that we're gonna go through tonight, and then we're gonna have a conversation around the data piece at our next meeting. There's some questions that we had around that. In particular, we wanted to kind of talk to our attorney around kind of, is it a FERPA violation that this company has access to student emails, and
Right.
some things that we had to work through. So, not sure how we all feel about that. I think it's gonna be really an open conversation to kind of get a sense of where the board would like to go. This is the idea of how do we keep kids safe. I think whatever we do, it's really important that we're always transparent with our families, so we should know clearly what we're doing and our purpose, why we do what we do.
Yep.
Great, thank you. And we'll get to those first reads in a moment. And then thirdly, the Wellness and SEL Committee will next meet on September 6th. Okay, and that brings us to new business. May I have a motion, please, to approve the reassignment of the committees?
I'll move to approve the reassignment of board members to committees as discussed.
Second, Rebecca.
Thank you, Rebecca. We're all clear on what those new assignments are. I don't have to read them again,
Mhm.
especially if I misread them again. All right, any comments or questions?
And
Go.
SEL always meets the first meeting of
Right,
the.
right.
Yes.
Friday first, okay. Just wanna
Yes.
double check that, thank you.
Okay.
I always
Comments or-
remember that Jerry and Nina run that meeting, and they're always here the first meeting of the
Oh,
week.
yeah,
So that's
that's,
how I always.
That's
remember it,
helpful.
so.
That's very helpful.
Okay, all in favor? Thank you, that's 6-0, and we have new committee assignments. Great. Next, we have some nominations. May I have a motion, please, with regard to the nomination of Matthew Taylor?
I move to approve Matthew Taylor, first-year probationary teacher, band, full-time, FTE, half-time, sorry.
Yep.
Marshwood Great Works School, half-time Marshwood Middle School. School year 2023-2024, BA Level 1, $46,368.
Second, Jen?
Jen, thank you.
I missed that.
And this is not our former board member.
No, it is not a formal board.
I did a double take when
I
I
know,
saw
when I
it.
saw the name, I did
Yeah.
too.
So, this is a shared position between the Great Works School and the Marshwood Middle School. Matt actually was a long-term sub for us, when Kayla Burke was out, after she had her child.
Mhm.
And so, Matt interviewed, recent veteran from the University of Maine. He was a resigning choice of the committee.
Comments or questions? All in favor? Great, 6-0, thank you. Motion, please, with regard to Emily Owens.
I move to approve Emily Owens, first-year probationary teacher, pre-K Elliott Elementary School, school year 2023-2024, master's plus 15 years, $74,886.
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. John?
Yeah, so Emily will be teaching pre-K next year at Elliott Elementary School. Has 14 years of experience working in early childhood in Boston. Lives in Elliott, just came in and just was a rock star. And so really looking forward to having Emily join the pre-K team at Elliott Elementary School. Worked at Roxbury as well, and then attended Simmons College, and then has her master's from Prairie College.
But at that same school for that,
Yeah.
virtually,
Yeah.
that's wow,
That's
that's great.
awesome.
Yeah.
From
Comments?
Portland, Maine region.
Comments or questions? All in favor? 6-0, thank you. Motion, please, with regard to Erin Dixon.
I move to approve Erin Dixon, first-year probationary teacher, health, FTE .5, Central School, Elliott Elementary School, Marshall Great Works School, school year 2023-2024, BA 17, prorated $37,404.
Second, Rebecca.
Rebecca, thank you. John?
So this was a little tricky in the fact that trying to find a part-time health person is tricky, and then also that we're trying to divide it up over 3 buildings. So we met as a team. Jerry did some interviews. Erin knocked it out of the park. Does some great work with Noble over the years. She's currently working for Noble right now. Really doing a lot of the health curriculum work, doing a lot of the grant work. She is a health teacher by trade.
She's awesome.
Yeah, and so she
Yeah.
will be coming to the Great Works School, and so let me try to explain this the best way that I can. Every Thursday, she will be at the Marshall Great Works School for the entire school year. And then on Tuesdays, every other Tuesday, Tuesdays for about, a 6-week period of time, she'll go from the Great Works School to LA Elementary School, from the Great Works School to LA Elementary School, so she'll kind of oscillate back and forth between the school, Elliott and Great Works School on Tuesdays, and then on Wednesdays, she'll work half days, at, every half day will be at Central School.
Yep.
And so it's gonna Fridays, so it's Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. So it was a .6 position originally, and that just didn't work out mathematically, and so I think this is gonna be a good thing for us.
Yep.
So part of her work initially is gonna be, curriculum-wise, we're in pretty good shape for Great Works School. We've got to do some work in the 4th grade curriculum. We're gonna have to some time in the 3rd grade curriculum at, Elliott Central School. So that's some time for them to be able to kind of get those ducks in a row, get that ready to roll. But kind of talking about what's that expectation, and kind of knowing that this position is really kind of a segue into a long-term solution, is really what we did. So
Okay.
thrilled and very fortunate that Aaron's willing and excited to come join us, so we're really happy.
That's great.
Erin, if you're listening, we're gonna recruit you to the wellness committee. She's been on the board of the Choose to Be Healthy Coalition since 2008 and has served chair for 3 years. It's pretty cool, award-winning.
And for anybody who used to watch the A-Team, we used to always say, I love it when a plan comes together, this
Yeah.
worked out, so this is
Perfect.
okay, so.
Okay, any other comments or questions? All in favor? 6-0, thank you. Okay, that's the new nominations. We're moving to the first reads. May I have a motion, please, with regard to the first read on BEDH?
I move to approve the first reading and discussion of policy BEDH, public participation at board meetings.
I'll second, Lisa. Sorry. Somebody get
I
on
think
it.
Kate actually beat you
I
too,
think
so
she
I'm gonna
did.
give it to Kate. Okay. A lot of changes, right?
Yes.
And I'm sure the policy committee did a great job on this, but let's chat about them just for a minute, if that's okay. Who wants to lead that discussion?
Jen, would you like me to go? Or would you like
Yeah,
me to?
sure, go ahead.
Okay, and so this is one of the policies that as MSMA went through our policy manual that we needed to update. And so what we've done is we've made a change now that says we have a 30-minute, a maximum of 30-minute public comment section to our board meetings. We would take residents first, and then if there's time remaining, non-residents would have the opportunity to speak. But we're not gonna go over that 30-minute time limit, and then they have about 3 minutes per person to come speak and share their thoughts. And so all of the kind of the rules stay the same, the decorum, expectations, we're not getting into personnel issues, those are all basically the same as before, but it really kind of gives, kind of opened up, particularly for our Rollinsford families, an opportunity to kind of
Yeah.
share some of the
Yep.
thoughts that they have, so.
Yes.
Is there some related stuff that we would have to update then, right, on the website, like the little, our
We-
public participation
uh,
information on the agenda, yes, but I think that's also on the website
Yep.
somewhere.
So we
Yeah.
would,
Yep.
we'd update the website, we would change this.
Yeah, yeah.
This part would all have
Right.
to change, we'll
Yep.
update that after the second read, so that would happen, basically, starting with the September 9th, or September 6th meeting.
Yeah.
Yep.
Just if we have a graphic on there,
I
so
was
just
gonna
let me
say,
know. I
there's a
gotta
graphic,
edit it.
so Heather, yeah, so
Yeah.
that's kind of why I was bringing that
Yeah,
up.
yeah,
I
yeah, I
think
gotta do
Heather has
that.
graphic.
Yeah, and I was gonna see on the website, well, as we were looking at it today, like there's things that need to be adjusted.
A few little things,
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, any other comments or questions about this? All in favor? Very good, 6-0, thank you. We'll see that again at our next meeting. Motion, please, with regard to the first read on did I do that right? Sorry, JLCE.
We approve the first reading and discussion of policy JLCE, first aid and medical emergency care.
I'll second, Kate.
Kate, thank you. This doesn't look like it changed though.
I think we got rid of the 2002.
Revision.
Revision,
Yep.
that was
Okay.
removed. The big part is kind of the next part, this we pick these up.
Okay, that's the accident report.
Yes,
Okay, so we'll get to that in a minute. Any comments or questions about this one? All in favor? That is, again, 6-0, thank you. And a motion, please, with regard to the JLCE-E.
I move to approve the first reading and discussion of policy JLCE, first aid and medical emergency care.
Second, Lisa?
Lisa, thank you. And this is the accident report. That's what you're talking about. And this is significantly different, or do we
No.
even not have one?
Hold on one second. I think, That motion was for, that motion that you just made, Rebecca, should be for number 7.
Sorry, did you not?
I think you just made the motion
Yeah,
for
number
number
six.
6. You read number 6, but you should read number 7.
Oh, so I read the wrong one.
And I completely
Yeah, I
missed.
double checked it, because I was like,
Oh,
oh, I
just
probably
read it.
need
Right,
to.
right.
Yeah.
I read
Could amend the motion.
Yeah, let's amend the motion.
Can you just rescind it, or?
Oh, right, because we just did the medical
I
care.
think we can rescind that, we can just edit it, read number 7, and
Yeah.
then we can have the seconded again.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Fine.
Okay.
That's
so
fine,
we
because
don't
we
have to
haven't
say that.
voted on it yet.
Oh, start over.
Yep.
So, I move to approve the first reading and discussion of policy JLCE-E MSAD 35, accident report.
I'll
Thank you.
second.
Okay. Great, thank you.
That's Jen. Wasn't even
Yeah.
paying attention.
Clearly I wasn't either.
So is this a new?
No, it's a form that we've had for years,
Okay.
but it's one of those forms that if we don't put in the policy manual, we've got to make sure everyone's using the same forms.
Okay.
So this is really important.
So it's not that the form has been updated, simply that it's word
It's just now, we've
Now in the
updated the
manual.
policy, and then
Yep,
we wanted to
okay.
make sure that the form is accompanied.
is in the middle. Got it, okay, good.
That's good.
Okay, comments or questions? All in favor? 6-0 again, thank you. May I have a motion, please, with regard to BGD/CHB?
I move to rescind policy BGD/CHB policy review.
I'll second, Lisa.
Lisa, very good.
So we can explain what we-
Yes, please, go ahead.
So, we created 2 separate policies that we voted in at the last meeting, and so now that the new policies are voted in, we no longer need this policy, so.
Yep.
We still have it addressed, but this is kind of a combination policy, and MSMA recommended that we break those things apart.
Right.
And so.
Makes sense.
Vote
Yep.
the new policies in, and we'll then remove this.
So this will, upon this vote, will be taken out of
That's
the manual.
correct.
Good. Any questions or comments about that? All in favor? I see 6 hands, thank you, 6-0. We don't have any building administrators here to check in because it's summer, which is why I'm wearing shorts. Any last comments from the board? Okay, thank you to those of you who came, including the 2 who left. Much appreciated. May I have a motion, please, to adjourn?
I move to adjourn tonight's meeting.
I'll second, Kate.
Kate, all in favor? That is 6-0, and